Because we love you so much and we read all of your mail. How did you know we were reading over your shoulder all this time? No, because you've told us that you love having nutrition programs and you especially like Dr. Mary Ruth Swope. We've brought her back, but we have also brought her back with the message we've been waiting to hear all this time. We told you barley green was in your future, and today's the day. We're going to talk about barley green. And let me tell you why you want to hear about that today. Because according to this book, Inspiring Secrets of Nature's Miracle Rejuvenator. Do some of you feel like chopped liver? You feel like you get up and go, got up and went? Well, today on this program, barley green could change your life. We're going to talk about that. Because we have Dr. Mary Ruth Swope, who's written this book. Are you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? And every time she's on, she tells us ways that we can keep from feeling sick and tired, how we can grow stronger and healthier and live longer. And what's the use of living longer if you're sick all the time? She wants you to be healthy. Then there's Bless Your Children Every Day, that beautiful book that deals with blessings that you could give your kids or for yourself. You can give yourself. Or husbands ought to give them to their wives, and wives ought to give them to their husbands. All that kind of stuff. Then there's Listening Prayer, another bestseller. This lady writes good stuff. Listening Prayer, and we'll find out about that. We'll have her on and talk about that. And then the two books I have been waiting to find out with bated breath is The Green Leaves of Barley and The Spiritual Roots of Barley. Why is barley such a big crummy deal? We're going to find out about that right now with Dr. Mary Ruth Swope, who has degrees. She's studied everywhere across the country, spent 20 years teaching home economics and things like that, and health and nutrition, and she's just been traveling the world teaching on how you can get your body into subjection, and so she's still working on me. I'm her test case, and her hardest case probably, but she's getting through. Dr. Swope, thanks for coming back and being our guest. Jim. You look lovely today.
Thank you. I feel good.
Now let me ask you this. The spiritual roots of barley.
Yes, right.
Barley really has spiritual roots?
Well, I tell you, it came to me that it did. Because, you know, there are 27 verses in the Bible about barley. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, there are 27 verses. And as I looked them up and studied them, this is what the bottom line of that would be. When the Israelites fought their battles in the barley fields, they always overcame their enemies. Think of that. And so that was very significant to me. And then one morning, just in my regular Bible reading, I was in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, I think it is, the 8th to the 11th verse. And it says that God chose barley leaves as the wave offering for the festival of first fruits. Now, who was the real first fruits?
Jesus.
Of course. And we're a type of first fruits. And so I got it. They're still doing that today. See, they wave the first barley leaves. You know, the priest does, for our sins, you know. And I just felt like, hey, wait, there must be something spiritual about barley. Then do you remember that when Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes to feed the 5,000, it was barley bread, barley loaves that he multiplied.
So they were eating it.
Right. And barley was the least expensive of all the grains, so everybody could have it. And then I began seeing things in the scientific papers. For example, there was a veterinarian who was from the northern part of the United States where it was very cold, I think Montana or someplace like that. He noticed in the spring when he would, I'll say it this way, when he would shoo the animals out of the woods, they had respiratory infections and they were not totally well in the early spring. And he would turn them out into barley when it got to be 6 inches high, barley fields. And he said in 2 weeks, their immune systems were so much stronger and that they were over their respiratory infections, their pneumonia and things like that they had. And so that was something that interested me. And then I met a man from North Dakota. And it was a funny situation, but I said to him, I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a farmer. I said, can you tell me anything about barley? And this was his answer to me. He said, yes, I can. He said, barley is a healer of the land.
Really?
Yes. And so I said, well, explain that to me. He said, well, we had, it's in one of my books, he said, we had a number of acres on our farm that would not produce hardly anything. Like when the rest of the farm was producing 125 bushels to an acre of corn, this would only produce 25 acres. And he said, my parents planted barley for 12 straight years and plowed it under. And he said, now that outproduces the rest of our farm. So he said barley healed that land that would not produce at all to the land that produced the most on the farm. Well then, Jim, I don't know how people will respond to this, but you know, don't you, let me ask you, you know that the Holy Spirit can speak to a person's spirit even in today's world, don't you?
Yeah. Oh,
well,
yeah.
okay, I started fasting back in 1978, I think it was, 1 day a week, and I would spend that day, most of it, in prayer. And so one day I was finished praying about the middle of the day, and I just said, well, Lord, is there anything you want to tell me today? And I heard, as plainly as I'm speaking to you, Mary Ruth, what Jesus is to the spirit, barley leaves are to the body. Well, the first word I thought of was Savior. And I could tell you the name and address and phone number of a man in California who had a triple bypass, was put on disability, told that he couldn't work anymore. After, well, let's say 5 months of barley green, he went back to work. The company said, don't do it because the doctors won't give you the disability as easily a second time. He said, no, I'm well. And that was probably 8 or 9 years ago. And he's still going strong, building shopping centers. That's his thing, you know. And he's working very hard. His heart was totally healed. And then, well, let me tell my own experience.
Okay.
I started taking barley green December the 18th of 1985. And I went with Marilyn Hickey to the Philippines and on to wherever it was, Singapore. And on February the 6th, I was in a hotel in Singapore. Now I'm talking about December the 18th to February the 6th. I had a fatty tumor on my ribs and had had that for about 22 years at that time. The doctor said, no, we'll just watch it. If I were to remove it and would miss even one little cell, it would grow back, so let's just let it alone. And so I was taking a shower and I soaped my ribs and they were flat. And I said, well, it must be over here. And I said, no, both sides of my ribs were flat. It was totally gone. So then I spoke to my son-in-law, who's a medical doctor, and I told him about barley green. And he said, well, grandmother, I have a dear older patient with infectious colitis and I'm not winning. I have a nurse with lupus and I'm not winning. I have another woman in my 25 years of medicine that has as near a rotten sinus as I've ever seen, and I'm not winning with her. He said, send me some. So I sent him some. And in 3 weeks, he called me back and he said, you know, every patient that I've given barley green to is better. It doesn't matter what they have.
Really?
Now, that got us interested in barley green, as you can imagine. Well, then, after my husband and I had been selling barley green for a little more than a year, I said to Don, look, I've done lots of research studies. Why don't I design a questionnaire and send it to the 204 people it turned out to be that have bought barley green from us for 1 year? And so I did that, and I got over 100 of those back, Jim. And if you know anything about questionnaire research, see, no, 10 to 20% return would have been all, you know. No, I got a large number of those back. Then we put all that data into a computer and got it back out. And in answer to the question, what medical doctor diagnosed conditions have been relieved since you've been taking barley green? And whether you believe it or not, the largest percentage of people said they were totally free of their arthritis pain. And one woman said that her joints were down so much that she didn't own a ring that would stay on any of her 10 fingers. Now, I want to tell you.
Whoa.
Wait, you know who Julian Whitaker is?
Yeah.
You just had him, Dr. Julian Whitaker. Okay, in his November issue of Health and Healing magazine, and incidentally, I'd like to give him a plug. I get many health and healing, so to speak, nutrition newsletters. This one is the best, and I don't say that because of what I'm going to read to you, if you'll let me.
Sure.
See, but here's what he said in November, and the title is Barley Juice, Nature's Recipe for Helping Your Body Cure Itself. Now, you know, when you and I talked before, I told you that in every cell there is the DNA, and the RNA comes in and tells the DNA what to do, and then it goes out and it can reproduce a cell, it can heal a cell, it can energize a cell, and it can remove the toxins from the cell. That many things I know of without reading a book, and there's probably more. So the DNA keeps us going. Well, as I've said so many times, and the Lord showed me how to say it. You see, if you want to make biscuits, you have flour and shortening and salt and milk and baking powder. Now, if you have good quality ingredients, you measure accurately, you mix it correctly, and your oven is accurate, you can make biscuits, Jim, from now till eternity, and they will be good biscuits, right? But what has happened in America is, instead of the flour, let's say, we're using cement. And instead of good salt, you know, we're using sand. You see what I mean? Instead of good milk, we're using some kind of liquid that is impure. And okay, so we're not making good biscuits inside our body, be it a liver cell, a kidney cell, or whatever. Now, the reason I believe that barley green will help anyone who takes it, doesn't matter what they have, is because it is the richest source of all the nutrients in a balanced form in a single food on the face of the earth, quote, quote, from Yoshihide Hagawara, who incidentally now has just accepted the chair at the University of California in the Environmental Toxicology Department. Now, in case for the people who don't know what that means, I'll tell you, because I spent my life at the university. Whenever a university establishes a chair, it is for a world-renowned person in the field that they select to have there and to have study. Now, Dr. Hagawara from Japan, who put barley green together 29 years ago, is now in the chair at the University of California's Environmental Toxicology Department.
Wow.
But back to Dr. Whitaker. He says here, Evelyn S. was in my office a few weeks ago for treatment of a relatively mild diabetes. However, for nearly 10 years before her diabetes was diagnosed, Evelyn suffered with debilitating arthritis associated with patches of psoriasis on the skin. Psoriatic, I can't say that, arthritis is a first cousin of rheumatoid arthritis and is characterized by inflammation, swelling, pain, and deformity of the joints. Now he says this woman had been going to a specialist in rheumatoid arthritis, and that she had taken Cytotec, Voltaren, Plaquenil, Darvocet, Atarix, if that's the way you say that one, Motrin, Lidex, Medrol, which is a steroid, and Flexeril. And this is his statement. These drugs have side effects comparable to a mugging. And then he goes on to say, none of these drugs worked. Then she got on barley green, and she told him in just a few weeks, she was over the pain, her joints were down, the inflammation was gone, and she was feeling wonderful. So Dr. What's his name, Whitaker, went to her specialist and told him the situation. He said, well, he didn't understand why that was, but he knew it wasn't the barley green. So Dr. Whitaker said, would you put me in touch with your worst rheumatic arthritic patient? And he did, and it was a man. And so Dr. Whitaker gave him barley green. And I think it was 5 weeks. He was totally free of pain. He was getting better. Yes. And so Dr. Whitaker went back to the specialist and said, you see, Mr. So-and-so, he's totally over his arthritis too in this short length of time. Said, how do you account for it? Well, the doctor said it must have been a placebo effect. You know, they thought, well, so Dr. Whitaker said, well, wouldn't you have thought that these people would have thought that one of these drugs, you know, was going to work, and that would have a placebo effect, but it didn't. So my point to you is, I really believe that natural foods, doesn't have to be barley leaves. I believe they're the best, but chlorella, spirulina, alfalfa, you know, spinach, hey, carrots, sweet potatoes, the yellow squashes. See, any natural food is full of nutrients that will keep the heart healthy, the joints healthy, the bones healthy, the muscles healthy, the organs healthy. You see what I'm saying to you? And so it doesn't matter. You don't have to have barley green, but I believe Dr. Hagawara's statement is true, that he studied 400 plants, and he's been doing it 29 years. And he studied them from the time they were 1/4 of an inch high until they were fully grown. And he found when barley leaves were 12 to 14 inches, before the second shoot of growth took place and then the grain on top of that one, you know, he said when they were 12 to 14 inches tall, they were the richest source of all the nutrients in a balanced form in a single food on the face of the earth.
Let's do this. Let's take a break and come back and figure out, how do you get barley into your body? Can we do that?
I'd be happy to do that.
Because I tasted something that we'll talk about this.
Yes, we will.
Yes, because barley does not have to be bad. It can be positive. Only time I've ever had it is in Campbell's soup when it was beef barley, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the leaves, right?
We're talking about leaves.
Okay, we'll talk about these leaves, the healing leaves, the rejuvenation. It says right here, inspiring secrets of nature's miracle rejuvenator. Let's try it. All these people are having success. Hey, what can you lose? Those 2 books are available. There's Listening Prayer, Bless Your Children, and Are You Sick and Tired? All these wonderful books. If you want to find out, do you have tapes too?
Oh, yes, I do, and videos.
And you have videos now too?
Yes, I do.
She has videos, she has tapes, she has more stuff than you can shake a stick at. And if you're saying, I want to find out what's there, here's what you do. You write to Swopes Enterprises Inc., P.O. Box 62104, Phoenix, Arizona 85082, or you may call 1-800-447-9772. 1-800-447-9772, and they can send you a little brochure that tells you all the things that are available and how to get a hold of them. And the books and stuff are not free, but they're what a great investment if it's going to change your life. Talking about people that we would want to get a hold of, that's Dr. Mary Ruth Swope. We've told you about all the wonderful books that she's written. We're talking today about the spiritual roots of barley and green leaves of barley. And this is a brand new edition. In fact, this one is going around the country, I guess, really fast.
Yes.
Tell me, how do you get the barley? You talked about leaves growing.
Yes.
How does it get from there into my body?
Well, okay, but let me talk about first how you make barley green.
Okay.
See, because there are 12 or 13 products on the market that have barley in them.
Okay.
You know, but Dr. Hagawara's barley is the only one that is processed by this method where it is neither heated nor frozen nor cooked in any way. You see, it's raw.
Okay.
And what he does, it's grown in Oxnard, California. And the manufacturing plant is right in the field where the barley is grown. So within 10 minutes from the time they cut it, it's being washed. And I'm sure you've talked to enough nutritionists to know how important that is, because that conserves the vitamins, you know. Then they chop it and squeeze the juice out of it. Then that juice is taken like in a tower about 30 feet tall, and it's jet sprayed in a vacuum at 97 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, enzyme destruction, Jim, starts at 107 and is total at 122. Well, this is 10 degrees below where enzyme destruction starts. So barley green, see, is nothing more or less than a raw food concentrate. And then we make it into a juice like, you know, orange juice concentrate. Well, this is barley juice concentrate, except you start with a powder instead of a liquid to begin with. And the thing that makes barley green work, as I see, there are several things, but just let me mention them. Barley leaves are the highest alkaline food ever tested. Now, my son-in-law that I told you about, he told me when he went to medical school that he found out that acid makes disease in our body, and alkaline keeps you from having disease. Well, meat, potatoes, and soft drinks all are acid when they burn in our bodies. And so the reason Americans are so sick with so many diseases, part of the reason is we are acid in our cells instead of alkaline. So barley leaves here comes along, and it's the highest alkaline food tested, and that's good. Then, you know, enzymes really make such a difference in the way your body digests and assimilates food. Well, barley leaves are full of enzymes, and one of them that's so important is superoxide dismutase. And at Duke University, for example, they are using now SOD, it's called superoxide dismutase. They're using that on all the people that they're doing bypass surgery on because it helps the heart. It's excellent for the heart. And barley green is filled with it. And it has over 100 enzymes that they know of that are what you call live enzymes, which means they have not been destroyed by heat or freezing or any other thing in processing. Then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was chlorophyll. You see, chlorophyll is what makes it green, and chlorophyll is a healer. And in the 1940s, there was a doctor at Temple University in Philadelphia, and he asked 19 other MDs in the hospital there to cooperate with him. And for 1 year, they studied patients in that hospital, and they gave them chlorophyll. Everyone, regardless of what else they got. They might have drugs, they might have surgery, radiation or whatever, but they gave them all chlorophyll. And the bottom line of that, and I have it in my book, well documented in a profession. In fact, everything that's in my book, Green Leaves of Barley, I'll tell you how I wrote it, but I want to finish about Dr. Gruskin first. The bottom line of that study was that every person given chlorophyll got well faster than the people with similar conditions that did not get the chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is a healer. And I want to tell you, the way I wrote that book, when my son-in-law's patients began to get better, he said, "Why don't you write a book?" I said, "Well, you know, I don't have the material to write it with." He said, "I'll go to the med school and plug into the computer every component that we know is in barley leaves. And then if I get the material, if there's enough there, would you write the book?" And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
And so, you know, Journal of Urology, Journal of all kinds of medical fields that I didn't know anything about. For 1 year and a half, I had the articles from those journals, a medical dictionary, and my tablet. And then I would check it out with 2 medical doctors, one in Oregon and my son-in-law. And they would tell me, yes, you have it right, or no, you need to change it a little, you know. And so that book is scientifically accurate. And if you want to know why Barley Green works, you can find out by reading my book.
All right, let me show you the books for some of you who said, "I'm already sold." There's The Spiritual Roots of Barley and Green Leaves of Barley. Both of these books are available. We'll tell you where to write and how to get a hold of Dr. Mary Ruth Swope. There's Listening Prayer and Bless Your Children Every Day, which are not nutrition books, but deal with the spiritual end of it. And then there is Are You Sick and Tired of Being Sick and Tired? This is the book that's the national bestseller that people have read again and again. It's kind of a book you go back to all the time. You need to reread. If you would like to write to Dr. Mary Ruth Swope, you write to Swopes Enterprises Inc., P.O. Box 62104, Phoenix, Arizona 85082. There's an 800 number you can call. It's a free call, 1-800-447-9772. That's 1-800-447-9772. You want to look at the claims of Barley Green? You can read those books, find out about them. And if they do what she says they do, what can it do for you? Hope we brought you joy. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Joy has been sponsored by National Minority Television and is made possible by your love gifts and telethon pledges. Your continued support will help us keep bringing joy to you every day. So write Joy, 432 Northeast 74th Avenue, Portland, Oregon, 97213.